I'm going to be talking about the difficult and the not so difficult situations where we try using technology to make the um performance of the phacoemulsification quite easy. Let me start out with a reasonably hard cataract, emphasizing on certain basic principles that I always follow. One of the things is to create an adequate rhexis, irrespective of the kind of instrument that you have access to. About 5 to 5.5 millimeters rhexis is what I aim at, and especially in the um, uh, nasal temporal direction, it should be adequate so that there's enough area for you to create a chop. And that's a hydrodissection just being done in one quadrant because I'm seeing the nucleus moving forward. It's extremely important that you make sure that the lens is completely mobile. Now, coming on to the settings as such, I use a vacuum about 600. As you can see, the intraocular pressure is just at 30. Initially, just the cortex and the epinucleus that's removed. And then subsequently, today, I always create a small trench in the subincisional area. I strongly believe that irrespective of the kind of grade of cataract that you're dealing with, this gives an excellent access to the meat of the nucleus. And once I get a purchase on that, I bust the segment in, and then you can see my vacuum goes up to almost 600 when I have come to foot position 2, and that's when I initiate a crack. It's extremely important that you make sure that this crack goes all the way right through and right up to the posterior aspect of the nucleus. And that's exactly, sometimes it might have to be, you might have to release and again regrasp and do a multi-level chopping. And as you can see, this happens in a very methodical manner. Usually in a hard cataract like this, I either chop them into 8 pieces or 6 pieces. In this case, each heminucleus is going to be chopped into 3 pieces. I'm almost done with one heminucleus. And as you can see over here, with each of these, I make sure that it's coming all the way to the center. And the ability to do this with the kind of performance that the Centurion gives you, you can see the vacuum going almost up to 600 and kind of in spite of the intraocular pressure being just at 30. And this is the kind of safety that this machine is able to offer us. And there have been cases where, as I'll be showing subsequently, you can go even up to 700 plus. And with the active fluidis, with the active Sentry, you have inherent confidence in the machine's ability to control all these settings. And you can see there is hardly a flutter, and the entire procedure goes ahead in a very controlled manner. When it comes to chopping, as you can see in my settings on the left, it's essentially longitudinal power that I employ, hardly using any torsional power, because I feel that that gives me an excellent hold onto the nucleus. And you can almost, chopping is complete, and you can find that the phaco power that has been used, which is almost entirely within the capsular bag, is quite low. And now it's the aspiration of the nucleus fragments that is kind of being created, and it's 80% power now on a linear mode, and it's happening in the supracapsular region. Though it's in the anterior chamber, I try to keep it tilted as low as much as possible. It is again the confidence on this instrument where there's very little movement of the phaco tip, and I allow the fragments to just flow into the tip, keeping it oriented in a sideways manner, and sometimes even the bevel can be pointed downwards. That's because in spite of the extreme settings that we have the confidence that the turbulence that is created by this is quite less. Going on to another scenario, I often feel that it's not competitive but complementary technologies, laser and phacoemulsification. And this particular hard cataract has been laser treated. And here I again create a trench along the trench that has been earlier created with the laser. And essentially here it's a question of creating the division along the segments that have already been created. What has been done in this particular case is to divide the nucleus into 6 segments along with a certain amount of softening of the nucleus. And each of these segments that have been pre-created with the laser, that's how we are going to divide it. Subsequently, you can see this again proceeding in a very methodical manner, almost exactly the same as you would see in the previous case. The only difference being, because it has been pre-treated with the laser, as you'd see finally, the amount of CDE that's used is almost half of that was used in the earlier case. But again, it's not the number of the CDE that alone matters. As you can see over here, most of the division happened in the endocapsular area, and it's only the evacuation of the nucleus that takes place in the anterior chamber, that also in the supracapsular zone. And again, the usage of power as such is quite less. I'm using almost 600 vacuum with power of just about 60%. Unfortunately, in this particular case, the overlay is not visible, but you can see the CD is quite low even for a extremely hard cataract like this. And though it's pre-treated with laser, it's sub 10. That tells you that it's more the fluidics which is working very well. And as I emphasized in the previous case, you could see the phaco tip being held in a sideways manner, allowing the nucleus fragment to flow in. This is a case of a hyperope of a plus 28 diopters, a fairly shallow anterior chamber. The patient had suboptimal visual outcome in the other eye because the cornea being a little hazy. And as you can see over here, there's a little older video where I'll be using more extreme parameters. Now I come to believe that 600 is the right way to go, and I use about 30 millimeters as my 30 millimeters as my intraocular pressure. Here, as you can see, in this extremely shallow anterior chamber, I think it was just about 2.2 millimeters. I'm using a vacuum of 700 plus, an intraocular pressure of 60, and it's extremely important in these cases that you get adequate incisions. Even if I'm using the laser, I prefer creating my incisions with the keratome so that it's more controlled, and I like to see that small bleed over there. That tells me that it's right at the limbus. And again, as I emphasized in the earlier case, in these situations, it's extremely important to get an adequate rhexis about 5.5 millimeter. Shallow anterior chamber, you could see the tendency for the iris to prolapse, and making sure that there is an adequate hydrodissection that has been done, and removal of the whatever little cortex and epinucleus is there, then subsequently buzzing the phaco tip in. The only difference here is that in spite of the high vacuum, I did not create the initial trench. As I said, this is an earlier video of mine. That's the reason you see that there is a certain amount of tendency for the nucleus to rotate. I find that now today in these hard cataracts, if I create an initial trench and bury my phaco tip into the meat of the nucleus, then the control that you get is quite exquisite. And as you can see, you can, even in the shallow anterior chamber, in a fairly elderly gentleman with a fairly hard cataract, I'm able to use a vacuum of 700. Of course, the intraocular pressure is slightly higher, but now with my experience with the Centurion platform, with the incorporation of the Active Sentry, I would not hesitate using 30 millimeters of intraocular pressure, even in a situation like this. Though vacuum, I believe 600 is a better way to go, and I usually keep my aspiration in the range of 34. I believe that leads on to better corneas in the postoperative day one, rather than the more extreme situation that you're seeing here. Essentially, the reason I incorporated this video is to show that the machine has the capability to handle even situations like this, whereas with a shallow anterior chamber with a fairly hard cataract with a vacuum of 700, you can again, there's hardly any movement of the phaco tip over here. And even during the last fragment evacuation, there is no step down that is necessary because of the turbulence that is created with the phaco platform that we have here, because of the kind of fluidics that's there, the active fluidics, the balance tip, the Active Sentry incorporation, which I'm sure the other speakers would have dwelt upon in greater detail. I'm just going to be showing you videos on this. It gives me greater confidence to deal with any grade of cataract. What about going on to another extreme situation, a high myope, just +1 diopter intraocular lens, post-RD situation? Obviously, it's going to be, the ocular rigidity is going to be extremely low in this situation, and because of which the tendency for the intraocular, change it to be very deep is always there. As you can see over here I kept my intraocular pressure as 20 and vacuum at 600. Here there is also an Active Sentry overlay, which gives a further level of safety. And I find that the Active Sentry actuation in these cases, I've seen the end of this case, is even though the cataract is not very hard, because of the blockade of the tip that happens in these cases, you would find that Active Sentry gets actuated quite often, and that gentle push essentially enables reorientation of the nucleus fragments and the phagoemulsification to proceed in a more methodical manner. Again, as far as the IP is concerned, when it is chopping, I do not switch on the IP. When it comes to quadrant evacuation, the IP is activated so that it again enables proper orientation of the nucleus fragments. As I said earlier, in this situation again, it's a distinct division of the nucleus fragment in the capsular bag into four quadrants. And in spite of it being a forced RD case with a +1 diopter intraocular lens being implanted, because I'm using a very gentle intraocular pressure of 20, the tendency for the chamber to deepen for reverse pupillary capture to occur is extremely low. And even though the pupil comes down a little bit towards the end of the surgery, you can see that without any movement of the nucleus phaco tip, the nucleus fragment literally hugs the tip and gently flows it in. Again, the orientation of the phaco tip in the sideways direction is because of the confidence that we have and the tendency for the protection that this technology offers as far as the posterior capsular integrity is concerned. And that's the end of surgery. And as you can see over here, the intraocular lens has been implanted. I just want to show you the last frame because it's you can see the RD buckle there, and because it's a extremely low power, it's a 3-piece lens that's going in, and extremely good results. And as I told you earlier, the active sensory actuation happens even in a situation like this whenever there is complete occlusion. In a situation like this where the soft cataract has been pre-treated with the laser, there's a slight variation in the technique that I adapt today, in the sense that with the down-up technique, I remove the nucleus, then I just hydrate within the segmentation that has been created, both in the horizontal and in the sideways direction. And I feel that the fluid wave literally splits up the nucleus into small segments. The pizza pies that have been created earlier with the laser is completely divided by this maneuver. And what you find over here, you could please look at the energy level. There's absolutely the CD is 0 right through. Active sentry is again used in this particular case. And I'm just picking up the fragments here. Again, the vacuum is about 600. The intraocular pressure is slightly on the higher side. I could manage this case even with a 30 millimeters of intraocular pressure. And this is, you can see the entire procedure being proceeding very methodically. There's hardly any sculpting or any chopping that's necessary because of the initial hydro division happening along the areas where the laser cleavage happened. Is already split up into multiple segments. And as I was mentioning in the earlier case, you can see even in a very soft cataract where the energy level, you say the CDE is just 0, the ASM, the active sentry, has been actuated 14 times. It's simply because whenever there is a tendency for the phaco tip to be getting completely occluded, then there is an impulse that is coming from the phaco handle itself that essentially precludes complete occlusion and offers a certain extra level of safety. This is just a hybrid tip that I'm using here. That's another great tool that Alcon has introduced. And you can see here that's a polymer that's there on the tip. Otherwise, it's the balance tip is exactly maintained. Is essentially good for grade 2, grade 3 cataracts. If it's an extremely hard cataract, maybe this may not function quite well. But as you can see, the chopping of the nucleus is happening in a very controlled manner. And as far as the protection for the posterior capsule is concerned, this modification of the tip offers another dimension. I think whenever I'm faced with a softer nucleus, especially if it's a clear lens extension, etc., this might this might be a good tool to use. As you can see, even a certain amount of polishing of the posterior capsule is possible with this. A very short video showing you usage of this polymer tip and the posterior capsule getting caught. I'm not moving the tip, but as you can see, no damage is done. And as you can see, those wrinkles are just in the posterior capsule. It's not a rent, and I'm able to go ahead and complete the surgery. I think the hybrid tip is another good addition that we have over here. And as far as moderate size pupil size is concerned, the basic tenets that I follow is essentially the same. And it's important that I use pupil expansion devices only when the nucleus is extremely hard, or I'm faced with a situation is that when the pupil is less than 3 millimeters. In a situation like this where it's about 4 millimeters, I just run the rexis beyond the rexis margin. And as you can see, again, the simple trench that I'm creating in the subincisional area, then subsequently almost using the same parameters, 600 vacuum, 30 IOP. It's because of the lack of turbulence, in spite of the fact that the pupil is quite small. I have the confidence that the iris margin is not going to get caught, and I'm able to complete the phacoemulsification using exactly the same maneuvers that I used in the earlier cases. It is the extreme placidity of the environment that this instrument creates that we are able to do this. And this is just a VVT toric intraocular lens being implanted, not really relevant to this discussion, but I think this is a great lens when you have to offer excellent intermediate vision with the correction of astigmatism without any compromise on the quality of vision. In a posterior polar okay, it is just a 1 minute video. Situation like this, you can see that we are creating no only hydrodelineation, and I'm just there's no rotation of the nucleus. Again, the small division that I am creating, and then without any rotation of the nucleus, I'm just splitting the inferior heminucleus into three distinct segments, and then subsequently just removing each of those nucleus fragments. Once half the heminucleus is out and the capsular bag is decompressed, I'm introducing a little amount of viscoelastic, and then subsequently I'm going ahead and removing this nucleus completely, and then introducing the intraocular lens. I think my time is up. I'll skip this video. Uh, I think the points I want to make is with the technology that's available to us, it's not just the surgeon, but the patient also is comfortable. You have a low and a constant intraocular pressure right through, reduced tendency for surge, less energy, heat, and fluid usage, extremely stable anterior chamber, friendly to the posterior capsule under the endothelium, and because of the incorporation of Ozil technology, less repulsion, more efficient. Thank you so much for your kind attention.